All right, Mike, we're back with another What I Love About Comics video. So, tell us another thing that you love about comics.
Well, I'll make this one fast. Let's talk about the Flash. Which Flash you're talking about? You're asking? Barry Allen? The guy that when I started reading comics, I was attracted to the colors of the costume and the speed and thought that Barry Allen was one of the most boring people alive. Great stories by the likes of Cary Bates, a wonderful rogues gallery. How could you not want to read The Flash? One month he's fighting Captain Cold, or Heatwave, or the two of them combined. The Mirror Master, who can walk through mirrors. Captain Boomerang, with all his trick boomerangs. The Trickster, with always the next prank planned to slow down the Flash. Abracadabra, the magician from the 30th century who could literally do things like turn the Flash into a puppet. Weather Wizard, who had a scientific magic wand that controlled the weather. Dr. Alchemy, who was actually a good guy with a split personality that was a supervillain who wanted to kill the Flash, while his other personality was a good friend of Barry Allen's. Gorilla Grodd, a super smart, super strong gorilla from a hidden city of gorillas who happens to be telepathic and have mind powers. And then, of course, Professor Zoom, the exact opposite of Flash, from the future, who hated the Flash because he admired him so much, and yet Barry Allen wasn't the person he wanted him to be. That was the Flash. And then, of course, he had his sidekick, Wally West, Kid Flash, running around. The stories were amazing, even though I found Barry boring. And then everything changed in the 80s. Crisis on Infinite Earth occurs. And Marv Wolfman and George Perez actually kill Barry Allen. He's dead. He's gone. This doesn't happen in comics. It did. He's dead. A major character who was supporting his own series. It had just hit issue 350. It's canceled because the character is dead. He died saving the world, and that was the end of Barry Allen. It wasn't the end of the Flash, though, because Mike Baron resurrected the Flash title. Now Wally West, former Kid Flash, taking on Barry's mantle, trying to live up to him. And not succeeding, but trying so hard for the memory of the person that inspired him. Memorable run by Baron, followed by William Mesner Loeb's humanizing Wally, making him into a character that you cared about. You might not like, but you cared about him. And the series puttered along until lightning struck a second time. First time being, of course, the first appearance of Flash. Got this relatively unknown writer who decided to tell the first year of Kid Flash in a story called Flash Year One. New guy by the name of Mark Waid. And Flash was never the same afterwards. Mark Waid started his run with this Year One story telling the origin of Wally and why he felt he could never live up to Barry's legacy, and why that had always slowed him down. And then as the story unfolded and we understood what was going on, so did Wally. And he ended up as fast as Barry at the end of it, ready to truly live up to the legacy of his mentor. That was the first thing that Mark Waid did. Then he proceeded to introduce the concept of the Speed Force, This is where super speedsters get their powers. That's why there's a Flash and a Kid Flash and a Jay Garrick, the Golden Age Flash, and a Professor Zoom. They're all getting their powers from the same stuff. That's why there was, in the Legion of the Superheroes, a Dawn and Don Allen, the Tornado Twins. That's why there could be a Bart Allen, Impulse. That's why. And where did they learn all this? Why, from the guy that came around before Flash, before the Golden Age Flash. The superhero who was originally known as Quicksilver in the Golden Age, who goes by the name now of Max Mercury. He was a super gymnast, and he knew the secrets of the Speed Force and taught them to Wally. Great stories, including the return of Barry Allen, Chained Lightning, Out of Time, stories that dealt with everything from the ends of the universe to infinity and beyond, time travel, mistaken identity, really a golden age of Flash. When Mark left, you had, well, before he left, he had took a slight break, and you had little names like Grant Morrison doing a story with the Black Flash, basically Death incarnate, but Death in particular for super speedsters. Then Mark came back for a little bit, and then passed the torch to this other new guy on the block, Jeff Johns, who proceeded to make his own stamp on Wally, making Central City a character of its own, explaining where Central City and Keystone City fit together, and how the legacy of Flash changed the world around them. During all of this, they kept building on Wally and building on Wally. And it was a great time to be a Flash fan. Even though a lot of people didn't like when Mark Waid came back after Wally was married and had 2 kids, it was still stories that you've never seen anyplace else. You hadn't seen the like of anyplace. And then Flash disappeared. Stopped doing stories of Wally. Instead, they had a 12-issue run of Bart Allen as Flash, now mysteriously grown up because of something that happened in the Speed Force. And then he disappeared. What's going on? There was a plan. Jeff Johns comes back to Flash for Flash Rebirth with the return of Barry Allen and a 12-issue series that dealing with time travel and Professor Zoom changing time and changing Barry's history. Honestly, the stories were interesting. You could tell they were building towards something, but you didn't know what. Until, boom, it hit. Flashpoint. A story that changed the entire DC universe and didn't change anything. You didn't know what was going on. Just all of a sudden, Barry Allen wakes up one day and he's not Flash anymore, and the entire world is different and no one knows why. Barry's the only one that knows anything's changed. As you go through, you find out what happened. Barry, seeing his foe constantly changing Barry's timeline so that Barry's mother died early. Oh, and not just died, she was murdered. And Barry's father was framed for it and was in jail. And Barry's life was retroactively ruined. Barry, in trying to change that, broke time, causing the whole world to change, which was what Flashpoint was. And then the world gets put together in time for DC Rebirth, where Barry Allen is still the Flash. And they go through until you got to DC Universe Rebirth, where Jeff Johns once more steps in. The one character that had been missing in the DC Universe during the Rebirth, with all of the DC characters about 10 years younger, was Wally West. There was no young no Wally who had been Kid Flash. Oh, they introduced another Wally who was Kid Flash, but it wasn't the same thing. Redheaded Wally was gone until DC Universe Rebirth, where he comes back from the Speed Force, linking back to the stuff that Mark Waid had done, to tell Barry, the world's changed, it's not the way it's supposed to be, which started all the Rebirth titles that DC is still continuing till now. It started the plot moving that has become Doomsday Clock. Coincidentally, it also started Josh Williamson's run on The Flash. First person that I've read that made Barry Allen an interesting character. You still have the great villains. You still have additions to his rogues gallery, like Godspeed. You have not just the Speed Force, but now the negative Speed Force. You've got great stories with, looking back, there's a history. Wally is around. Wally remembers that Iris and Barry were married. Barry knows that he was married to Iris. Iris doesn't know yet. And they're not together now. Will that relationship be able to come together again, so that Barry Allen can once again be one of the most happily married superheroes of all time? We don't know. Will Wally be able to step up and be the hero in his own right that he was before? We don't know. Yet. Flash is a great series. Williamson has been killing it for almost 50 issues now. If you're not reading it, you should be. If you want to read great superhero comics, read Waid's run on Flash. Read Johns' run on Flash. Go back and read the Baron stuff. Maybe the Mesner Lobes. You want to see what superheroes used to be like? Read the Cary Bates stuff in the original run of Flash. You'll see villains that are villainous. You'll see a hero that's heroic, but all the characters are likable. The villains are villainous, but they're not evil. They're crooks. They have a code of ethics. So it makes sense that these villains keep coming back time and again. They're not a crazy person who kills that needs to be put down. They're bank robbers. They're jewel thieves. They're nuisances, and they're a load of fun. Read The Flash, and you'll know why I still love comics.
All right. Thank you, Mike.